What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one I want to talk about what's going on with Tsla and SPY, talk about some very important technicals to be looking out for this week and going into next week. And also talk about some very important things going on with the charts as we're developing another trend that could lean more bearish. But before I break things down all this information, before I get into any more details and talk about how the market is looking, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. Anyways, let's break down what's happening to the market. So, looking at SPY on the very, very small time frames, such as the 30 minutes time frame, we basically made an attempt to bounce because of the fact that the PCE data was quite good and ended up being as expected. But the PMI report was a little bit lower than expected, leading to a slight sell-off. Then we started to see yields go up, which led to more selling and more hawkish Fed speakers such as Williams and other factors which suggested that we're entering a more difficult time for the economy. We're starting to see recessionary factors kicking in, and we're starting to see more contractions as economic data comes out, especially from the PMI report. So looking at SPY, this looks not necessarily the best because we have a possible head and shoulders like structure that's developed on the 30 minutes time frame. It's not as clean on SPY as it is on like the QQQ and Tsla. I will talk more about those a little bit later, but I want to first talk about this. I also want to mention that on SPY, we did get some kind of bounce. We're expecting this thing to try pushing up. It did get the push up, but it ended up failing. And that's why I warned you all later on during the day that there could be a reversal coming. And this thing ended up reversing and continuing to drop to much lower levels. So SPY once again is looking weaker. The market is weakening a bit. And the question is, are we about to see a lot more downside, or is the market going to be bottoming anytime soon? So historically, September tends to be a very weak month, and we were down more than 3% for the month of September alone. Not just September, but for the entire quarter. We were down even more, even for just the S&P 500 and SPY alone. And now the question is, what about the future for the markets? How are the markets gonna move going forward, right? Well, honestly, we're not looking that great for the bulls because we have this head and shoulders on SPY. It was a trying to bounce. We had the technicals telling us that we got the bounce, and it ended up failing on its face, and the market started to slow down. So on SPY, this is very simple. We have this 200 EMA, which is acting as a good support right here. We want to see SPY try to bounce off of this because if it fails, it's going to be testing this trend line. It has to try to hold this trend line. If it fails, we're going to be making a new low and coming all the way down to potentially 418 or even the 410s. Okay, so this trend line is going to be very important going into next week. For resistance, we have this resistance zone, which happens to be very close to a key fib retracement I was looking at. I can actually pull this up real quick right now. If we start like way down here, we could even draw this out kind of like this. You will see that this retracement just so happens to be very close to where this 433 area is. This is where we have the supply zone. This is where we got rejected in this zone. And, right now we failed to really break it. So it's not looking the best, at least for now. Now, from an Elliott wave perspective, there's a different way you could look at the market, especially looking at the daily. So when looking at this, we want to determine, is this just a very, very strong downtrend? Is the market done yet? And it doesn't look like we're done with the selling just yet, as more downside tends to happen in October. Now, we have earnings coming out for October. That could be the thing that triggers the bottom for the markets before a nice bounce for the potential November and December rally. But at the same time, if earnings are really bad, they could cause the market to straight up just crash, continue sinking very, very hard. So it's very important to be ready for that. Not to mention, be prepared for what's about to come for the any potential government shutdowns or anything like that. All of this is affecting the markets so far. So what we could do is we could draw out a Elliott wave sequence. We basically have our wave 1 completed. Wave 2 has been completed too. But what we're not sure about is this alone wave 3, or are we still in a much larger wave 3? Because this could be like wave 3. If we do end up holding this support at the 200 EMA and we establish another high and we try to continue going, we could still theoretically form like wave 4 before the final wave 5 for October, before the market ends up like sinking. So this could be another example. Or what you could argue is that we're still in wave 3 and the bottom is not in yet. So like we're still going to sink to wave 3 like this. Wave 4 comes a little bit later. and then we get like a back test of the trend line, for example, and then we like, continue sinking to lower levels before we get some kind of bounce. That would be like the more like even more bearish possibility, which is still on the table. So it's very important to note this. For now, however, the market's looking weaker. We really wanted to bounce. It looked like it really wanted to, but it failed to do so as the bears have the edge and the bearish algos took over as a result of us breaking and rejecting off this key retracement level. So how does this look going into the upcoming week? Honestly, guys, we're looking a little weaker. We're going to likely test these supports down here, the trend line of support. That's going to be very key since I connected this from other trend lines way back here. This is the trend line that's been holding SPY up for quite some time. You guys can see it right there. So this green trend line, let me just get rid of this. The green trend line is going to be a very, very key level. We'll see if we bounce off of it or not, because if we break it, we're going to start selling off more aggressively. Now, if we were to hide this, the really bearish case would be we just continue to sell off into the very low 400s because this head and shoulders could make a full measured move. We don't have to drop that hard, like all the way down to the 390s, but the lower 400s is still a possibility. It is possible we drop to these much lower levels if we continue to get the catalysts and more fear emerges from the markets because of what's going on with the government, what's going on with all this data that's coming out, the economic contractions, the recession, and the fear being incited by lots of these Fed speakers. So we'll have to wait and see. For now, there is a head and shoulders on SPY. It is looking weaker, and it's very important to note that. I just wanted to keep this more simple. We're going to be watching, by the way, don't forget to be watching this trend line. It's going to be very key for SPY. For Tesla, it's not looking that great as well. We have deliveries coming out. I'm going to make a video about that for tomorrow. But deliveries are going to be coming out for Sunday. Tesla has some big data coming out that's going to be very important and very telling. As far as Tesla goes, you guys can see that we have this trend line right here, which is a historical resistance. And we didn't even come close to it just yet. Now, looking at Tesla, it's looking a little weaker. It made an attempt to bounce. Very, very nice attempt. It is a little green too. But if anything, it ended up failing to continue to hold up. So what we could do is, hold on. What we could do is really look at this. Things are continuing to look like Tesla has attempted to make some key developments, but overall, it wasn't able to hold the levels it was at. So today we rejected very close to our 0.382 retracement area, like way down here. I would say that, that was a clean rejection, but Tesla managed to close green, which is okay. But Tesla's not in the clear just yet because we have some big deliveries coming out. So technical analysis is just kind of limited on Tesla right now. It's not going to be the biggest driving factor as of right now because we have deliveries coming out. And Wall Street is not very much just like excited about this because Tesla's Chinese numbers have been on a bit of a decline. So you could argue that we have this head and shoulders on Tesla, and Tesla has this gap down here. So it's very interesting how this all happens to align. Is Tesla about to tank? That's the question on a lot of people's minds. Are we about to see something play out where Tesla just continues to sink down? Are we about to see Tesla do something like this where we have this, this left shoulder, the head forming here, and this is our right shoulder. We just failed to do much, and we just start sinking after deliveries, coming down to fill this gap into the lower 200s before some kind of bounce afterwards. It's a possibility. If Tesla were to sink that hard, this could have an effect on the QQQ because other stocks, especially consumer discretionaries out there, are going to have similar trends developing. So if Tesla does something like that, it's going to have a big effect on the markets. That's why you have to be prepared for what's about to come and what could end up playing out. Last but not least, guys, when it comes to the QQQ, I just want to mention one more thing. For the QQQ, plain and simple, just like Tesla, we have a head and shoulders. We have this clean left shoulder here, the head right here, the right shoulder is forming. If this thing gets a big rejection, we break below 358, 356 is the last point of hope for the bulls. If that breaks, this thing is going to be coming all the way down to 353 quite easily. If not, the lows we made previously, like 351, 347 could come even if we break 350. So there is most definitely some risks for downside. So be very careful, especially if you're holding tech stocks. Be very careful and be prepared for what could end up happening. It's very important that you are ready for this. All right. So there's a risk of potential downside for Tesla and the market. You guys can see Tesla has this like head and shoulders like pattern as well on the 30 minutes time frame. There's a risk of downside. Am I promising it's going to happen? I can't really do that as it depends on deliveries. We'll see what happens to Tesla and other factors like that. I will talk more about Tesla tomorrow, but I just want to warn you all to be prepared, do what you have to do, and just know that there is a risk for downside on SPY, on Tesla, the QQQ, and all these different tickers. All right? So thank you for listening. Have a great day. I will talk more tomorrow about more updates. But for now, remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Thank you for listening. Tesla to the moon alongside the whole market as the long term is still very bright. And peace out.